Good afternoon to you, Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here about 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time, and let's take a look at the very latest on Jose. Probably a hurricane again. Recon is out there and the data coming back that we can watch via the internet suggests it has reached hurricane intensity once again, but we will wait for the official word to come down from the National Hurricane Center in Miami on the 5 o'clock update. It certainly looks healthier than it has in recent days. Well-established outflow, that sort of curl, and a little bit of an outflow channel here on the east side. Very good banding features associated with it. So more than likely that this has become a hurricane once again. There's Bermuda. So some long period swells coming in towards Bermuda. And in fact, those radiate out from the center all over the place up here. And they will eventually reach and they have been, the east coast of the U.S., the Bahamas, and even parts of the greater Antilles down here. And as I mentioned this a lot, it's great for the surfers. It certainly is, and there's even, I think, some surfing championships, 1 or 2 going on. And so it's perfect timing for that. But I'm telling you, these huge breakers can be a real problem if you don't know what you're dealing with. There's a lot of energy in moving water, especially when it's breaking right on the shore. So please, please, please be careful. It shows up as a statistic that people die from surf, generally speaking, more than they do from the wind. All right? So really be careful out there, and that's especially for you parents of youngsters, and even the parents yourselves. You got to be really mindful of that. And if you have any questions, check weather.gov, put in the zip code for the area that you're going to, and see if there are any advisories on surf or beach conditions. And the simplest thing is, if you see a lifeguard or beach patrol person, ask them. So the 11 o'clock advisory package, we're going to look real quick at Norma. Don't want to ignore what's going on in the eastern Pacific. And this is a tropical storm, forecast to be a hurricane, and to make landfall up here along the Baja Peninsula. Hurricane conditions will certainly be possible, likely, etc. And then that will spread the moisture into northwest Mexico, and maybe even from there, some of that moisture gets pulled into western Texas and New Mexico, so be aware of that. Looking in the Atlantic Basin, and luckily in the East Pac, there's really nothing else going on to speak of. Very busy out here over the next several days with Jose, and then this new area that we were watching since a couple of days ago, 96L, and then Tropical Depression 14. All of these systems bear watching over the next few days. TD14, maybe not so much. We'll have to wait and see. But I think certainly with 96L and what it could become, you folks down here in the islands, you really want to be mindful of this over the next few days. Of course, the forecast track for Jose from the 11 o'clock advisory certainly suggests that the center would stay off of southern New England here, southeast New England. But remember, it's not just the center of circulation. You know, we can speculate and say, well, what if the eye gets very large and the wind field expands? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here for pretty dramatic impacts, like a warm, powerful nor'easter going by. Water temperatures up in this region are much colder, and I'll show you that towards the end here. But the likelihood of some kind of direct impact with increased surf, beach erosion, maybe some storm surge, onshore flow. I mean, look, you guys know all about the benchmark, and it looks like it's headed for the benchmark up there in that region for the possibility of some significant event impacts for southern New England. But this is 5 days out, and the error cone suggests that the center could be anywhere in here over the next 5 days. So, you know, it's something to certainly be aware of, but don't get too panicked about it just yet. You know, if it were to come up and just make a beeline run into New England, you know, that could be a bigger problem, goes without saying. So, looking at the sea surface temperatures, this updated, it's always a day behind, but this is the most recent from the 14th, which of course was yesterday. And what we notice on here is, and I want to zoom in, so assuming that Jose moves right up close to that benchmark area over here by day 5 or so, it's not that far off the north wall of the Gulf Stream, to be honest with you. And, you know, yeah, there's pretty cold water up here east of New England, and the circulation will be passing over some of that. But until then, you know, you can drive some pretty strong easterly winds in here and really build up those waves. So New Jersey, eastern Long Island, the islands up here, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, the Cape, you name it, definitely looking at some impact. It's just a matter of how much and how direct will it be. Will there be will there be rain bands and squalls and onshore, circulation interaction from Jose to the area? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. You hate hearing that all the time, but it's true. So we can look to the models for guidance. This is the GFS from the 12Z run, the initial position, and then we go out to 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours, and here it really starts to look like it's going to threaten, coming right on up into New England, and it's just going to have to do with how much high pressure is to the north and building in from the east to kind of shove this back and forth. It's being squeezed between this area of high pressure and what we call higher heights in the atmosphere. Jose's caught in between, kind of like being squeezed between two enormous water balloons, and Jose is itself a water balloon. Maybe a jello balloon is a better way to look at it. They're all kind of liquid or fluid, and they interact with each other. So that's 96 hours, and then at 1:20, the global forecast system has it very, very close to the islands and the area, Cape Cod, Chatham, as an example, and the Cape proper, Cape Cod itself. Will that be what happens? Well, this is 5 days out, and we all know, it could be over here somewhere. It could be sitting up here, it can hang on down here. Maybe it slows down dramatically. Maybe it comes up, and then it's kind of lollygags around and then goes out. There are a lot of variables, even in 5-day model land, all right? So if we look at day 6, it goes on out to sea, and then day 7, look what's happening. We now have what would be presumably Maria, if TD14 becomes Lee first, and then we have this enormous area of high pressure building over the northwest Atlantic, and that means we're going to really have to keep our eyes on this. We're talking about a week out, and that's usually I only go 5 days, but I like looking at the pattern and trying to set up the larger pieces, and you see this huge trough digging in, and that creates a equal and opposite reaction, sort of, downwind from that, so to speak. And so it's kind of like whipping a rope, right? And you send the waves through it, and you get this wave pattern in the atmosphere. And so we'll just have to see what happens. A busy time in the tropics for sure. Looking at the European from the 12Z run, so it's the same time frame that the GFS was, but this is from the ECMWF model. So again, there's Jose right there, and that's the initial map. Let's put this into sort of animation, if you will. There's 24 hours, 48, 72, 96, moving kind of due north there, fairly close to Hatteras, and then finally at 1:20 it veers off, and then it does sort of that slowing down deal where it comes right up and then hooks a right there. And even this would put some strong northeast winds across the islands and the Cape, and of course this is 6 days out, and then there's day 7. It kind of hangs around here, and the longer this stays, like the Euro is showing, probably the less chance this has to affect anybody. So if the GFS is right and Jose comes up and gets out of there, then the heights can build back over the Atlantic here, and Maria, if that indeed is what that would become, could come on in close to the southeast. I want to show you real quick what this looks like in terms of a model plot. Now, none of these are going to take into account the Euro, and the GFS hasn't been put into this just yet. But this gives you an idea overall of the envelope of models, generally showing a south to north movement fairly close to southeast New England here. And we got to remember that this can shift east and this can shift west, the overall guidance package. What I like to look for is the tightly clustered nature to it. Always disregard this. It's a statistical climatology and persistence model, and that's not really helpful. But look at the rest of them, fairly tightly bundled here, and you don't have any major outliers, nothing coming over here and a bunch over here like this, and then a whole bunch over here like that, where it looks like a tree. This looks more like a trunk of the tree, and that's at least helpful in some reliability. The GFS ensembles from the 12Z package, that's the GFS operational, with a whole bunch of different versions of it run to kind of play what if. It's hard to see it, but that red one right there is the ensemble mean, and it gets buried in the rest of the group. But close enough to New England to definitely keep an eye on this, and we will certainly be doing that. All right, well, that is it from me for today. I'll have more videos throughout the weekend, and I might even be getting ready to head up to New England, so stay tuned for that. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'll have another video discussion for you starting tomorrow morning.